I apologize, but before we get into this video, I really wanted to shine a spotlight onto the gameplay of this video, because we're talking about Abbotsford. Hey, it's finally time to start using the Abby Canucks gameplay that we had from before, and actually reincorporate it onto the channel. I took a break from using Abby Canucks stuff when we had the Canucks historical season stuff that I started to use for Canucks post-game content, but this is indeed the grand return. Say hello to Wings de Conway, say hello to Mark Messier, say hello to Cale Makar, and all of the other legends that we put onto our Abbotsford Canucks squad. And watch as Wings de Conway goes out there and absolutely dominates the competition. You know who didn't dominate the competition, though? The Abbotsford Canucks, as they have just gotten eliminated from the 2022 Calder Cup Playoffs in probably the most embarrassing way possible? Okay, no, is embarrassing the right word to use? No. How about unfortunate? That's a better way to say it, right? So, a little backstory before we get into this entire thing. The Abbotsford Canucks had themselves an opportunity to actually give the fans in Abbotsford and here in the lower mainland of BC a lot to cheer about. The reason for that is because with a few games left in the regular season, the Canucks needed a few more points to seal themselves home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs. They needed like 1 point in their final 2 games, something like that, in order to lock up home ice and give the fans a series. If you don't know, the Calder Cup playoffs in the AHL start off with a 3-game series to kick off in round 1, so it's a best 2 out of 3. You need to win 2 games in order to advance to the second round, and they don't switch venues. They stay all in one team's court. So for a lot of my friends, I had friends at floor hockey that were going out there and saying, hey, we're buying tickets to the Abbotsford Canucks playoff games because they're going to be here and we have a pretty good chance that they're going to get themselves the home ice advantage, right? Well, wrong, because unfortunately in the Abbotsford Canucks final series against the Manitoba Moose, wherein they needed 1 point to get home ice, they lost with a combined score of 13-1, 7-1 in the first game, and 6-0 in the second game 2 days later. The Canucks kind of crapped the bed, and as a result, Bakersfield, which is the Edmonton Oilers farm team, ended up getting home ice advantage instead for the first series against Abbotsford. So the Canucks went down over to Bakersfield, California to play 3 games, and I mean, okay, a lot of Canucks fans, my friends included, were kind of ticked off. Oh, darn it, we bought tickets to the first round of the playoffs, and now the playoffs aren't going to be here. Now we need to make sure they actually win. That's an added level of stress that we didn't think was going to be there, but at the very least, the Vancouver Canucks sent down a few players to help out Abby, like Nick Patan, like Sheldon Dries, like Spencer Martin, like Artur Silovs, like Will Lockwood, who didn't play, unfortunately, and then you also had Vasili Podkolzin. Now, Podkolzin was a good story, because in the 2 games that the Abby Canucks played in the postseason, Podkolzin had a goal and an assist. He had iron a few times as well, and he had a few good rushes too. So Podkolzin, for all intents and purposes, played pretty well. Lockwood, as we said, didn't suit up because he had an injury, so that's very unfortunate for him. And Spencer Martin, while not getting the results that you probably would have wanted, still looked pretty phenomenal too. The Abbotsford Canucks, though, in the postseason ended up losing 2-0. That's 2-0 in the series, not in a game. So, no, they're already done. They're out. They lost 2 straight to Bakersfield in the 2 out of 3 series, and my friends that bought tickets to the Calder Cup playoff games in Abbotsford probably will get a refund of some sorts. I don't really know, but the first game was kind of wild when you take a look at it on paper. It was a 2-1 Bakersfield win. And this was a game where Spencer Martin had to make 45 freaking saves on 47 total shots. The Abbotsford Canucks only had 31 shots, so this was a game where Bakersfield was pretty much leading the race, and you could see that in the first 2 periods as well. Bakersfield had 20 shots to Abbotsford's 7 in the first period alone, and by the end of the second, the total shot counter was 31-13. Bakersfield was going off, and Spencer Martin was pulling off a Thatcher Demko, being the guy stealing the game. In the third period, Abbotsford actually got on the board first. 10 minutes ago, it's Vasili Podkolzin off of a very nice play in front where he bats in a rebound. Assisted by Guillaume Brisebois and Sheldon Rempal, the Canucks are looking to squeak out of this game with a win, even though they probably should not have gotten that win. But like the hockey gods do, they equalize things like Thanos does. It's perfectly balanced as all things should be. Seth Griffith ties it with 30 seconds left in the third period, and then James Hamblin wins it in overtime, assisted by Tim Schaller of all people, and Cooper Marody. So there you go. Abbotsford hung on to a game that they should not have had any chance of hanging on to. They had a lead in the game that they should have had no chance of actually having a lead in. But they blew it with 30 seconds to go. Spencer Martin, instead of getting a shutout, which he was 30 seconds away from getting, ends up going out there with 2 goals against on 47 shots. Ay. The Canucks, man, they blew it. Classic Canucks, right? Then you also have yourselves the next game, Game 2, which was yesterday. The Canucks ended up losing 3-2, was in regulation, not in overtime. The Canucks had the lead, Sheldon Dries burying a power play goal assisted by Jack Rathbone. That was the only goal of the first period. Adam Cracknell, you remember him? Yeah, he was a former Vancouver Canuck too. Gets a goal in the second period to tie things up, and then the third period we have ourselves Brad Malone, Sheldon Rempal assisted by Podkolzin and Dowling, and then Cooper Marody as well, getting things on the board. The final goal of the series coming with about a minute and 22 seconds left. So, yeah, the Abbotsford Canucks blowing things late. Kind of feels like their older brother, doesn't it? The final goal was tough to watch too, because Spencer Martin makes an initial save where he ends up in the spread eagle position. Eventually, there is a player that gets shoved into him, and he gets displaced outside of the crease, leaving Cooper Marody all there by himself to just put it into the open cage. Like, how unlucky can you get that you get a pretty, I don't know, in my opinion it was textbook goaltender interference penalty right there that doesn't get called, and it results in the game winner with a minute something left to go in the third. But Abbotsford ends up blowing all of these games with last-second goals in the second and third periods of Game 2 and the third period of Game 1. It doesn't look good on paper because the Abbotsford Canucks have a better roster. They spent to the cap, they did, in order to make themselves a product that Abbotsford Canucks fans for the first time would be happy to see. Now, I know the fans were indeed happy to see that, but still, this was a team that was filled with talent that was all borderline tweener NHL caliber. You had Sheldon Dries, Sheldon Rempal, Nick Patan, all the guys that were called up, Justin Dowling, even Vasili Podkolzin was there with a goal and an assist. But the weird thing about this Abbotsford Canucks stint was the way the games were coached. You had Trent Cull going out there and scratching Danila Klimovich for 2 straight games here. You also had Jett Woo playing forward. This was a really, look, I'm not the biggest Abbotsford Canucks follower. There are definitely some more people out there in the Canucks community, in the hockey community. Cody Severson is one that I follow dearly, who follow the Canucks, or the Abbotsford Canucks that is, with a lot more pinpoint accuracy and precision into what it is they're doing and why they do this. But for me as an outsider, taking a look at what the Abby Canucks are, okay, this is a developmental league. This is a league for the purpose of giving the younger players more to play for and more growth in the sport of hockey. What kind of growth is going out there by sitting Danila Klimovich for 2 games in the playoffs? What kind of growth is going out there by playing Jett Woo on the wing? Apparently his defense hasn't been great, but isn't that what the AHL is for? Isn't that what the AHL is as a developmental league? You develop these players where they're supposed to be developed. I don't know if Jett Woo is going to be a winger when he makes the NHL. He was a physical, scoring right-handed defenseman in the Moose Jaw Warrior system. So why not try to expand on that? I'm not really too sure what the entire plan is here, but a lot of people have been talking about Trent Cull, the Abbotsford Canucks coach, and debating whether or not he should be you whatever, because, you had a team that was super stacked up top. You had a goaltender in Spencer Martin that was doing really well. It's just last-second goals, and a very strange way of deploying your lines is ultimately what costs you a series against a Bakersfield team that should be, on paper, worse. So, if you watched any of these games, if you had AHL Live or whatever the TV service is that they have, apparently it's pretty cheap, isn't it? $30 for the full year for all the games, something like that? I mean, I personally would prefer Abbotsford to broadcast their games locally because, hey, if we're in Richmond, Surrey, Langley, Hope, Poco, Maple Ridge, you probably are close enough to Abbotsford to get these games, right? Is there no, TV broadcaster that's willing to go out there and get those rights? Either way, let me know in the comments all your thoughts about the Abbotsford Canucks. If you watched the games, let me know what you thought about Spencer Martin, Vasili Podkolzin, and all that stuff. If you're just tuning in and you're hearing about this for the first time, then hey, let me know in the comments what do you think about the way everything goes. Maybe there's a lot of context that I'm missing because Klimovich was scratched and Jett Woo was playing at forward. If there's a reason that actually makes sense, then let me know in the comments what exactly that reason is, because in my mind, I can't really piece together what the proper decision-making would have been to come to conclusions like that. Okay, Woo is going to be a forward, you know, right wing, fourth line, right wing spot. That's better for Woo than it is for Klimovich. Like, it makes so little sense to me, so let me know in the comments if you have any rationalizations as to why this was done. But the Abbotsford Canucks are out, and all we gotta do now is take a look at the contract, see who's gonna come back, see who's going to stick around, and who is going to make the team full-time next year. Spencer Martin's there, Podkolzin's there, Rathbone is there, but who else? Dries, Dowling, Patan? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.